welcome to the Drip and Stone podcast, a podcast where two friends raise a glass and have a conversation. I'm Nick.
I'm Kyle.
Kyle.
Hey, Nick.
Welcome to the month of November.
Yeah, we made it.
We did make
Man,
it.
can I say something really quick?
Please do.
That theme song does not get old.
It never does.
Man, I can still just jam to that thing.
I know.
So good.
I think we've said this before, but it's on one of my playlists.
All right.
And every once in a while, like, it'll just cycle around to it. I'm like,
Yep.
podcast. Oh, wait, no, it's the whole song.
What are we drinking?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's just the song. Never
I mean, absolutely. It is really good.
It slaps hard.
It's one of those things of like, I actually, like, when we first decided on that, and we decided on it for a bunch of different reasons, but I was like, am I still going to like this? And then I went through a period of like,
right.
but then now I'm like back to like, man,
Yeah.
there's something about it.
Yeah. It's a good tune.
It really is.
Bro, we are halfway through the Burr months.
I get out of my head. I was literally just going to say that. I was like, we're in the third burr.
Yeah. Crazy.
I know.
Feels like we just got to October like a minute ago.
And now we're here.
Now we're already in November?
Yeah. We're recording, literally, this is November 1st.
Yep.
You guys are hearing it on the 8th day of November, if you're listening to it in real time.
Yeah.
I was going to say this might be my favorite month, but it's one of my favorite months.
Yeah, it's up there. It's in my top 12.
Really? Yours?
Yeah.
Mine too.
Yeah.
I really love that period just right after Halloween because it's like the
Patient?
Yeah. Of, all the holiday season.
Sure.
Because I feel like Halloween really kicks off the holiday season. Like, it's not the holiday season until after Halloween.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I see what you're saying. I can't fully agree because, like, we do decorate a fair amount for Halloween. We got some lawn,
Sure.
accoutrements, some things we put around the house. Like one of my most favorite things that I've allocated from my mom is this like little not porcelain, but ceramic ghost that was always in our house when we were little, and every time I pull that out for Halloween, love it. It's like one of my favorite like holiday ornaments that comes out throughout the year. So I don't know. I feel like Halloween, a few weeks before Halloween, kind of really starts to like get me in the holiday festivus mood.
I mean, I'm not trying to discredit Halloween because I do like Halloween, but I feel like it's like November 1st. Now I can like, all right, we are in the twilight of the year.
Right.
We're heading into Thanksgiving.
Right. The weekend of the year.
You're right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
We're there.
Yeah.
And that's when the holidays as a whole starts. But I'm totally there. Like I love Halloween, man.
Yeah.
And I think like I've grown to like it more and more.
Right.
When I was a kid, like, you do the trick or treat and all that kind of stuff, and that's fun and candy. But I think it's also for me, it's because it's that kind of demarcation holiday of like, okay, here we are.
Right.
I like it even more because of that too.
Right. Couldn't agree more.
Anyway,
November.
I'm happy about it.
Yeah. What have you been drinking recently?
So
been on a kick of anything?
Yeah, in like our last episode, we talked about the rye kind of mentality that I'm in,
right?
And I'm still there.
Okay.
And that usually that rye season for me usually lasts until maybe mid-November, almost to Thanksgiving,
right?
And it's just for whatever reason I don't know.
Still
that's
there?
the thing that I'm in. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep.
I'm still kicking a lot of bourbon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Recently just finished a Knob Creek single barrel. And that's a kicker, man.
Yeah.
Those are
120. Yeah.
And I actually been throwing that on a little bit of ice.
Yeah.
Just because too, like we've had a weird kind of like heat wave.
Yeah.
Not weird. I mean, it's Florida. It's kind of to be expected. But we
did
have like a nice crisp like week there at one point in time, or 4 or 5 days, and really got you into like the feeling cozy weather, and then all of a sudden like it popped back up to like mid 80s.
Yeah.
It's just gross. So yeah, was throwing that on some ice, so that like kind of broke it down, made it just as enjoyable. Still kicking the bourbons around right now.
Literally, I was thinking about this last night because as I was passing out candy, one of my kind of traditions is, I'll have a pour of something. I usually there's nothing I'm like, man, that's the Halloween pour. But I ended up pouring Blue Spot and I sipped on that and it was fantastic. So like I'm sitting there passing out candy and everything. I'm like, man, I could go for a scotch right now. And I'm like, wait. Ain't scotch season. Now, to be fair, like scotch is anytime. But I'm like, but you've been drinking the rye right now.
Right.
I know I took a break. I'm drinking an Irish whiskey.
Right.
But I literally I had that kind of thought of, man, I can't wait to get to like smoky Scotch season.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're almost there.
Yeah.
I know we're recording tomorrow. We could do smoky Scotches, but I'm like,
right.
we ain't there yet.
Right. Pump the brakes.
Yeah, we got to hold up.
Yeah. Like I know I told you, but I recently watched the Beckham documentary. Anytime I'm watching anything that's English based, I need a Scotch to go along with it. So like I was drinking Scotch a couple of days that I was watching that. But no, yesterday I did have a pour of the Magnus cigar blend.
Yeah.
Just because that is so...
That makes... Well...
It's so vanilla forward. It almost tastes like...
Wasn't it called the Great Pumpkin?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. It's like just very folly. And I was like, that's perfect. Give me some of that.
Doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're drinking today.
Oh, okay. What are we drinking?
I found a little bottle. A little allocated bottle.
Ooh.
You know, kind of hard to do sometimes. Like it's been a minute since
Is this allocated?
I don't know if it still is, but it started out as an allocated bottle.
Okay.
I mean, it's been around now, I think, if I saw correctly, for 4 years.
Really?
When I was researching it after I found it.
Yeah.
It was originally an allocated bottle, but I'm not sure if it still would be considered that. But
I know
I think
hard
most
to find.
places will consider it.
Yes.
They'll treat it like it's an allocated bottle. They'll
Absolutely.
price it like it's an allocated bottle.
Correct.
Totally just
what
walked.
is it?
It's
Sorry.
it's a bottle that I found and got this son of a gun for $55.
Wow.
Like, could not believe it.
Yeah.
Anytime I've ever seen it, it's always north of 100.
Yeah.
Creeping up towards 200.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I wonder
got
if
the
it's
deal of deals on it.
I wonder if it's just our area. I know you said you did some research.
Maybe.
You didn't see if like that was a thing elsewhere too.
Allocation wise.
Well, just price wise.
Well, I mean, I think that's always been its price. That's always been its MSRP,
okay.
but it's just never
About
been
55.
Yeah,
But
around
okay.
55, 60.
I got you.
But you know, if you see it, like I've never seen it in a place that will price things at MSRP.
Correct.
I've only ever seen it at secondary stores.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, where my price range for it's always been
Out of the price range.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is the Elijah Craig Toasted Barrel.
Ooh, a little Heaven Hill product.
Little Heaven Hill.
Yeah.
Toasted barrel.
Toasted barrel.
94 proof.
Okay.
Elijah Craig Toasted Barrel, distilled and bottled by the Elijah Craig Distilling Company in Bardstown, Kentucky.
I've been there.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You have a good time there?
Actually, I really did.
Yeah?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I had the, I think I mentioned this at some point before, but I had the William Heaven Hill, which I think is a 17-year.
Whoa.
I think so. I could be whiffing that a little bit. I remember going into the tasting, and it was with a senior taster.
Yeah,
I guess.
Nice. Yeah, an old tongue, if you will.
Maybe. And the guy like knew everything. Like this was clearly a person that you could ask any question about any Heaven Hill product.
And they're gonna have it ready.
To be fair, probably any bourbon at all.
Right.
And that dude knew it.
Yeah.
And like
It's in the holster.
yeah, he had the flannel sweater vest to prove it.
Nice.
And it was great. It was around Thanksgiving that we went, so it was chilly.
Right.
But man,
Crisp in the air.
yeah.
Perfect.
Well, can we get into
Yeah,
it?
let's go ahead and get into it.
Do it.
My understanding of the process is that they take their normal Elijah Craig bourbon, age it to whatever their normal aging process is.
I think they're about 4 years. I think because, bourbon, they want to keep it around that 4-year mark. Although I think it's NAS.
This bottle or just regular Elijah Craig?
Regular Elijah Craig.
I think you're probably right. I would if I had to guess, I would say it's probably like one of those deals where they're like, it's bourbon 4 to 8 years.
Yeah,
kind of a
yeah,
thing,
yeah.
Just to kind of try to keep the profile similar.
Yep.
But for the toasted barrel, if I understand it correctly, they take that normal aged bourbon and then they age it for another, I want to say 6 months.
Oh.
In a freshly toasted barrel.
Gotcha.
So the freshly toasted barrel does not get like that full char on it like normal barrels do. It's a lighter toast on the barrel, which then affects the whiskey in a different way to produce different notes and
stuff.
tasting bits.
I mean, sounds good to me.
That's
I
my
like notes and
understanding
tasting bits.
All right, here we go.
Do it. Ooh, that was in there snug. Man, that was a great sound. Thank you, sir. Ooh. So, based on what you just said,
Yep.
regular Elijah Craig,
Yep.
which you can find
Anywhere.
$30 ish everywhere. Yeah. And then we toasted another barrel, fresh barrel.
Yep.
Stuck it in there.
Yep.
For another 6 months ish.
Something like that.
Okay. So why the hell is it allocated then?
My understanding is just they don't make as much of it.
Gotcha.
And I think it just being a new product, whatever, just creates that limitation. I was actually looking it up yesterday, like, is there just a generic list of these are allocated bourbons.
No.
You can't really find it.
Because it varies by state, too. State, even region.
Varies by state, but basically, like, just an allocated product just means that the distillery has a limitation on how many whatever you can sell of it or buy
cases they're going to allocate to the area.
Right.
Or company or whatever, yeah.
So, like, literally anything could be allocated if they decide to call it that.
Yeah, so then that allocation kind of moniker for the whiskey nerd has kind of come to signify that this is a rare thing, ergo a more expensive thing.
Right.
A more highly sought after thing, too.
Right.
When that's not really what it means. I mean, it just means maybe it is a little bit more rare.
Yeah, I mean, I have no, like, they don't give any kind of information about, how many barrels of this we've made or anything like that to really know how limited it is.
I'm looking at you, Buffalo Trace.
Yeah, but anyway, color-wise, looks just like normal Elijah Craig, as far as I'm aware. Looks like bourbon.
I was going to say the same. It's bourbon-y colored.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, because if you're just lightly toasting the barrel, it's probably not going to impart a whole lot more color.
Yeah, if anything.
Yeah.
On the nose?
It smells like Elijah Craig with a little bit more of a tannin-y kind of note there.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm just like playing into the marketing.
No, I don't.
But it kind of seems like it's got like a little whiff of like campfire on it.
Yeah, it really does. Or like
fresh wood.
Fresh wood. You just stuck a pine log into the fire, and like it's not like fully like burning yet. It's just like it's starting to go.
Right. I mean, I'm getting like all the sweetness, like the caramels, the vanillas.
Yep.
But there is just like this kind of weird, like little bit of a charry kind of or like somebody was just like splitting wood.
Yeah. This may be playing into marketing, but it smells like lumberyard, but like you're also eating a piece of dry white bread toast that's just a little too toasted.
A little past.
Yeah, it's not burnt crispy black.
Right.
But it's like
that orange.
It's
orangey toast.
It's heading in that direction.
Right. Like nothing's really like popping out at me in terms of like what I would think it's similar to, but it does kind of have this kind of like extra woody nature to it.
Yeah, there's definitely a pronounced oaky note.
Yeah, oaky note.
It's a nice nose.
Yeah, it's a great nose.
Because you're right, you get quintessential bourbon, and then there's just a little something extra.
Yeah, just a little extra whiff of wood.
Yeah, shall we?
We shall.
Going in.
I would even kind of say the same thing on the palate.
Yeah,
like it's pretty quintessential bourbon, but just like it's got like I feel like a touch more of a oaky note on it.
Yeah, there's just a bit more of a bitter. I wouldn't go so far as to say like super pronounced oak. It's just like a bit of a woody note, and then a nice bitter there to finish it off.
Yeah,
but it's Elijah Craig all the way
for sure. Yeah, I mean I've always thought that like Elijah Craig is a very good baseline bourbon.
Agreed.
Like quintessential bourbon-y, doesn't really lean one way or the other. It just has everything that you kind of expect out of bourbon.
Yeah.
Elijah Craig does a really good generic bourbon flavor.
Agreed. It's not Jim Beam. Like I feel like it's in that next level up. And that's not a knock on Jim Beam. I just feel like there's that super base level.
Right.
And then you got like Elijah Craig, Buffalo Trace. It's just that like slightly elevated.
Sure.
I think of like, as much as I love Turkey and Jim down there in that kind of really starter level.
Right. Well, and I feel like, at that base level, they've all got like their kind of leans.
Yeah.
Like Beam leans
peanutty. Yeah.
Buffalo Trace, I feel like just regular Buffalo Trace leans kind of rye in that direction.
I could see that. I was going to say vanilla. Like to me, Trace like pops vanilla for me.
Well, I usually get like a spice on it that I just kind of attribute to rye.
Sure.
Turkey has always had this kind of like charry element that it falls.
Black pepper to me. Yeah, absolutely.
So like I feel like I always have that, but like Elijah Craig to me has always been kind of like just right in the middle of all of it. Just like it doesn't really lean any which way. It's just right there in the center.
Friendly AF.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. There's nothing fantastic about it, but you're going to have a good solid pour.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it either.
But this, I'm not blown away by it. It's straight down the middle.
Right.
And yet there's a little that like just slight oaky nature just like shifts it.
Yeah. Right on the back palate.
Yep.
Just adds that little bit of interesting, more little something else to think about.
It's like, okay, I'm drinking a bourbon and I'm setting up my campfire. I haven't lit it yet.
Right.
I've got my wood together and I'm starting to starting to put it together.
Right.
I haven't struck a match.
Right.
Yeah. I ain't
there's no smoke in it yet.
I ain't poured no gasoline all over that thing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, agreed.
You need a whole bottle of lighter fluid? Maybe.
Yeah. You're going to want to light that one from back there.
And by back there, I mean the next neighborhood over.
Yeah, step back. 2 more feet.
Hopefully nobody strikes
Keep
a match.
going.
Yeah.
Now throw that match.
Yeah. But what I kind of appreciate about that is that it's not, I don't know how to say this. It's not trying to, I was going to say it's not trying to be something more than it is.
I mean, but I would agree with that. One, like if you think about the process,
Yeah.
we then took however many barrels that they did it to and put in more work into the drink.
Yeah.
We put in a little bit more work. We put in a little bit more aging, a little bit more of a process of like dumping and refilling and all this kind of stuff to try to make something that's different.
Yeah.
And you did that.
You did it.
And
I noticed it.
To a degree that myself, I would say, I think it's more interesting.
I agree.
So I think it's worth the effort that you put into it.
So here's my next question.
Yeah.
Is it worth the extra $30?
At the rarity of it, yeah, I think so.
Okay.
For as long as this has been around, I've wanted to try this for as long as I've heard about it.
Agreed.
Been wanting to try it so for what I would assume is 4 years. Mm-hmm. Would have pulled the trigger on it. Having even now tasted it, yeah, I still think it's worth what I paid for it.
Right.
Not what I would pay for it on secondary.
Correct.
Certainly.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, if I ever found it again at that price, and just again knowing how hard it is to get, knowing that it is a limited quantity.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely worth the extra $25.
Okay. This is, purely hypothetical, but if it were as ubiquitous as regular EC,
Yep.
I mean, because it's still at 94, it was on the shelf. Would you rather gravitate towards this at 55-ish or EC at 30-ish?
Well, my assumption would be is if they're making equal amounts of it, they would price it equally.
Okay.
And so then it just becomes like a preference.
Which one do you
you like better?
Yeah.
Because I would assume then at that point, say they meet in the middle, they're both $45.
Uh-huh.
Which one would you rather have? And I think I would probably gravitate towards this personally. Yeah. I haven't had just regular Elijah Craig in probably a couple of years now.
Uh-huh.
But always remember liking it.
Yeah.
It used to be kind of my I would go to of if I were like out of town or something like that and I wanted a bottle to have, I would kind of usually go for that.
Yeah.
Just because it is so middle of the road.
Right.
This I feel like is different enough that it makes it more interesting. It's more interesting pour.
For me, I'm kind of indifferent. Like, and if we're all things being equal, let's say they're both $45. Yeah, that would be my answer. Do you like them? Yeah. Is there one that you like over the other? Because I'm just thinking of, is this more interesting? Yeah, I think it is, but only more interesting paired against regular EC. Like, do I think this is an interesting bottle as a whole in the grand pantheon? No, because you're like you just said, middle of the road. I like all those notes. There's some, oaky notes, but I think it's only interesting in that paired against what I remember EC being. Does that make sense? Like I don't, it's just being that I know how difficult this bottle is to find. Yes, that ups my interest factor.
Right.
And I think it's good because of it. But juice for juice, yeah, okay. That would be my answer. Do you like, would you rather one or the other? Okay.
Agreed. Yeah, I don't think it's really that much different from the benchmark experimentation.
Agreed.
Of like changing an element to see how that changes the drink, and clearly going through that whole catalog. Yeah, they were all a little bit different, and especially like compared side by side, you could see the differences in them. Yeah, and I guess that is kind of like an exact comparison of because they were all roughly the same price.
Yeah, they were all between $20 and $30.
So it was like in that whole experiment, you could find out specifically which one did you like more.
Yep.
And say, that's the one that I like. But even in that instance, it's like you don't really come out the other side of it like, yeah, no, I'm a huge benchmark single barrel fan.
Great point. Like I will never buy any of those again. Right. Not because any one was particularly bad. Right. Just like, but like the cool thing about this particular bottle is right now it's rarity.
Well, and that was what was so cool too about the benchmark thing when they first came out. Yep. Like that was a very sought after thing. And I would say the same thing about this that I would about the benchmark stuff, which was super fun. Yep. Like super cool that absolutely you can see the difference, taste the difference in everything. Yeah. And I love the experimentation of it. I love the experience of trying the new thing and seeing how that alters the thing. Like it gives us the briefest of glimpses into that like process. Yeah. Of trying all this different stuff. So you know, in that alone, I feel like it's like a successful thing.
And I love, you just said the experimentation, and we've talked about this over the last, you know, probably 10 or so episodes, just about like people experimenting. And I love that you have a major distillery who is going to do that.
Right.
And that's what I also loved about the benchmark tasting, just while we're on that same subject, is that like you have Buffalo Trace who's willing to experiment. And I like that. That's cool.
And I wonder though, you know, all right, so Elijah Craig has done this one.
Yeah.
They've also got out the barrel proof. Mm-hmm. They have a lot of store picks that really like range in ABV levels and stuff like that. I would certainly think this is probably, though, the more beneficial way for the distillery to do it, which would be, here's a new thing that we're going to do now. Mm-hmm. They'll probably, they you know, if this came out 4 years ago, they've got to have something else planned in the next few years. If here's going to be a different release, it's Elijah Craig aged in port barrels or something like that to make a new thing. Whereas Benchmark did them all together at the same time in one big release.
Yeah.
I wonder which way would play out better, you know, over time. You know, like it took me 4 years to find this bottle at this price that I was willing to pay for it.
I've got an answer for you. I think the Benchmark thing was Buffalo Trace going, oh God, we need to make room.
Right.
We have to
move some
we
product.
got to get rid of some stuff.
Right.
And we got to figure out a way to move some Benchmark because everybody wants regular BT right now.
Right.
And we just got to create something. Okay.
Right. I got an idea.
And you had some guy, you know, some nerd with his pocket protector push up his glass and goes, excuse me, gentlemen, I've got an idea.
Hold my calculator.
My abacus.
Yeah. Hold my TI-83.
Ooh,
Yeah.
fancy.
What they got to be up to something crazy now. TI 7000s.
I have no idea.
Yeah. Totally interesting. Definitely wouldn't want to pay any more than what I did for it.
Yeah.
Price and rarity and all that stuff, and where does that like fall on your caliper of where you place whether the drink is good or not?
Yeah.
Because you can't completely disregard it. It's always going to be in there.
Right.
But was it worth it? Is it good? All those things are so tainted by all of it.
I mean, and like, had you purchased this at that secondary mark 4 years ago,
right,
we might be singing a different tune.
Right. All right. So what shall we converse about?
So as of us recording today, we're recording on the 1st. So a week ago, Variety released or posted an article.
The magazine company?
Yeah.
Okay.
Posted an article about Marvel.
Sure.
And the article was entitled
The Marvelous Mess that Marvel has created.
That would have been pretty good. The article was titled Crisis at Marvel. Jonathan Majors' backup plans, the Marvel's reshoots, reviving original Avengers, and more issues revealed, which I think is a bit clickbaity.
Sure.
Yeah. But the article is really talking about, discusses some of what happened and what was released and what was discussed at Marvel's big annual retreat. I think that that's an in-company kind of retreat, and maybe they invite press there. It's held every year in Palm Springs, and they kind of talk about the state of Marvel at this retreat. I read
the State of the Union for Marvel.
Yeah, basically.
Right.
And the big topic essentially in this article is what you just said, the state of Marvel,
right,
which is in disarray. I mean, there are many other adjectives to use, but I think the article at one point uses the word shambles, like Marvel's in shambles. I think that's too far. But
it's a bit dramatic.
I think it's a bit dramatic, but I mean, so too is the title of the article.
Right.
But like just the where is this ship going kind of thing.
Right.
And it got me thinking about my own personal thoughts on the MCU right now, and where it's kind of like confirmed some things for me. Not that I needed Variety to confirm this,
right,
but like it's a collective confirmation of like, what is going on?
Right.
So I thought that we could just have a quick conversation about that, about what we know. I don't want to rehash everything in the article, but just like our kind of thoughts right now, where we are, what we've seen thus far post Endgame, and what do we see the future being?
Yeah. Yeah. What was our last Marvel conversation? Was it post Ant-Man or pre Ant-Man?
We didn't talk about
pre
Ant-Man.
Ant-Man.
Yeah, it had to be pre Ant-Man. Yeah. It might have been, I don't remember, man.
Well, I mean, I know we did one right before Ant-Man. Let me take a quick gander. Yeah, Ant-Man and the Wasp. February 15th.
We actually talked about Ant-Man and the Wasp?
We did it before the movie came out. It was like what we were expecting it to kind of be,
okay.
what we were kind of hoping for, that sort of thing. So yeah, we haven't discussed Marvel specifically since February 15th.
Okay.
When we talked about Ant-Man and the Wasp.
And kind of like...
We didn't even talk about Guardians.
No.
Wow.
Yeah. You know why?
Oppenheimer.
Maybe.
I mean that was like, that dominated. Just the Oppenheimer Barbie thing dominated this summer.
Yeah.
Blockbusters wise.
I can tell you...
that, and we were in Europe.
Well, that too. I think that says a lot about like where everything is, that we haven't talked about it in a while. Like you just said, obviously other things have come up, but like I'll say this, I haven't really been impressed just in general.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
I mean, I guess the bright spot would probably be Guardians, like for the studio as well.
Right.
Like that movie did really well.
Yep.
But like Ant-Man and Wasp didn't.
I think it did okay. Like it's not like it was a flop.
Right.
It made money. But it was certainly nothing where you were just like blown away by it. And like, in all honesty, like in the trilogy of movies, not really sure where I would put it.
Yeah.
In the Ant-Man, was it better than 2 or worse than 2? Neither one of those was better than the original.
In the time of this, you had what was the Nick Fury thing?
Secret Invasion.
Didn't see any of it at all.
Really? You didn't watch any of it?
No,
I watched the whole series.
Nothing.
Disappointing.
She-Hulk.
Yeah, I watched that whole series.
Yeah, I didn't watch none of that.
Yeah.
No.
That one I would argue is kind of worth the watch.
The reason why I bring those two things up is because the article brings it up is like these things are problematic in several areas in terms of like there doesn't seem to be a steady direction in which this ship again is headed.
Right.
Like I feel like by this far into the first iteration of the MCU, we could kind of see where everything's headed. I mean, you got to think like at this point, we're 3 years into this next phase. To be fair, COVID interrupted a lot, but we're 3 years into this next phase. And by, 2011, so 3 years into the first phase, you kind of could start to see where we're headed.
Sure.
Ultimately, like we all knew that this was going towards Avengers and all of this was going to come together. But now it just still 3 years in feels like, just reaching for anything that's gonna work.
Right.
And maybe there is a bigger perspective, but the series that they've like pushed so much money into Disney Plus, I think the article mentioned like some of the She-Hulk episodes cost like $25 million an episode to make, just because of like CGI and everything else going into it.
Right.
I mean, Marvel's just bleeding money too.
Yeah.
In a company that as a whole hasn't done super well in the last couple of years.
Yeah. I mean, the MCU as a whole on this side of Endgame, I think they've been trying a lot of things and thinking that because up until Endgame, just like everything they did was gold.
Yeah.
They just like assumed that would just continue. And I didn't read the article, but I think I've seen a lot of takes from other people who did read it and their thoughts on it and stuff like that, where the vast majority of the Disney Plus series, those all seem to have been things that they just pulled the trigger on to do, and there was this philosophy of we'll fix it in post kind of a thing, like just shoot it and then we'll make it work.
Yeah.
And I think that those kinds of things could work in the movies a lot easier if you had a movie that wasn't necessarily like, I could really see like Ant-Man 2, Ant-Man and the Wasp being that kind of movie where it's like they just went ahead and shot it for what it was. And then in post shoots and added stuff that they could tweak it and make it kind of fit into the narrative better to make everything kind of flow more of what you were wanting and expecting leading into Endgame.
Right.
And I feel like now with all these series, with so many things going on and stuff like that, it's a little hard to, one, get the tone of the thing right in post and then make it narratively make sense in terms of overall where you're trying to lead us all.
Yeah.
But, compared to any other phase, like I know you've probably seen that chart of like hours, like, for the first phase, we got like, 8 hours of movie, or 12 hours, something like that. But in this most recent, in phase 4, we got like 80 something hours of content. There's so much more to see that like the fact that there isn't this kind of clear sacred timeline type thing leading us to an event is super frustrating. And I think everybody's just like reeling on it right now.
And to me, what you just said, more is not better in this case. And I recognize like that's kind of what Feige has been the king of just shoot the thing and then we can, obviously there's a direction, but we can figure it all out and we can piece it together and we can make it what we want. And we also, because of how we've collected these stars, we can throw like, hey, Robert, can you do us a solid and like, can you give us an hour in your basement, put a green screen up, and we can make that work. And like, that's not difficult. I'm not saying that that's what they did, although maybe what seems like every Avengers movie or every movie that Downey Jr. is in past a certain point. But like now I don't think they're doing that. It feels as if it's just more disjointed. So having more content on one side, you've got nerds going like, give us more. But if you don't have a solid, clear direction of what that's leading up to, your filler, if you will, like She-Hulk and things like that of like, yes, this matters, but like, we're just giving you more to gush over. If there's no clear direction, you've lost your foundation here.
Right.
And is 8 hours better than 80? I think in this case, yeah, it is.
Right.
Because with my 8 hours, I fell in love with these characters. I knew what to expect and I knew where we were going. And I was like, oh, take me there, take me there. Now there's no clear direction.
Well, that, and I feel like too, like even if we had that original 8 hours and we still had 8 great hours within this 80 hours, we would feel a little differently too. I don't think we've got the 8 great hours either.
Perfect point.
Like we don't have. Guardians 3 was great. Spider-Man No Way Home was great. But we've also had a couple of other movies in between all of that were kind of like mediocre at best, that really didn't like fulfill the promise of like what we've expected from Marvel leading up to all this. So I think there's that too. Like if we had these like tent pole movies that were also being released and then the series were more filler kind of experience, we'd be a little bit more okay with it. But the fact that like even the movies seem disjointed and not connected in any way.
Yeah. Because the first Infinity Stone saga, and we've said this multiple times, it feels as if you could start with Iron Man and end with Endgame, and it just feels like one long narrative. I mean, it doesn't work in every case, but it feels like it could be one long narrative.
Right.
Because that's how it was done. But there's just so many zigs and zags and moves and changes that you're doing a lot of movement here. And financially, obviously, I have no idea what it's like to be a CEO of a Fortune 100 company. I've got to think Iger's sitting somewhere going, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Because you guys...
and he wasn't at the helm for the vast majority of it.
Exactly.
Right.
And so, like, sure, there's cleaning up these messes, but, like, the Marvels has been in reshoots for, like, 2 years. Something like that. Like, it's been a long time. It's been plagued by that kind of stuff, which... didn't seem to happen before.
Yeah, I don't know about that. It's like I know they always talk about like everything does reshoots and things like that. So I don't know if they're in a more reshoot phase or not.
Yeah.
I know that the big story came out a couple of weeks ago about how the Marvels will be the shortest MCU film ever.
Wow, I didn't know that.
It'll be the shortest runtime. Like up until that point, I think Thor 2 had the record, but like this is gonna beat it, and like I feel like kind of substantially by like 10 minutes or something. And a lot of that, like they've trimmed, they've cut like major scenes. It seems like or if you looked at like the first trailer that was released, clearly like this one element seemed to have more prominence than what has now been shown in the pre-screenings and things like that. So like they clearly like had to cut a whole bunch of stuff for whatever reason. For if that's
right, finally
somebody did come in and say like, no, we're not going there. Get that out of here. And they're trying to tighten it up.
You know who it was?
And fix it.
It was Kathleen Kennedy.
Doubt it. I don't think they'd let her on set. But I think maybe that's a good thing. They're cutting it down that much. Maybe they are trying to trim off the fat, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you can only hope.
So another problem that they've run into, Marvel as a whole, and that the article talks about, is the Jonathan Majors problem. Because you set up fairly early on in this next phase that your big bad and or not bad, depending on how you view this character, is supposed to be
or
Kang.
which version of the character.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, is Kang, and now what do? They've done it before. They've recast people.
From what I understand, on that front is I think honestly, I think Marvel was just trying to like not deal with it at first.
Correct.
Because I think they kind of learned their lesson from James Gunn of like, we can be too reactionary.
Yes.
To bad news. We can go in the other direction and actually kind of make things worse by reacting in the inappropriate way.
Yes.
So I feel like they've tried to do that, and I think they're still kind of waiting to see how that's going to play out.
Which I don't fault them for.
Right.
Like, I actually like that they've done that, but their hesitancy, I think it leads to all this other stuff.
I was having a discussion with somebody the other day that I think that whole lawsuit and stuff is actually over now, and it's done.
Interesting.
And it was settled outside. I haven't read that in an article, but like somebody told me that. So whether or not that's the case, playing it slow may end up, being the right move.
Sure.
And not just initially reacting, and then it can kind of come back to bite you in the end and make you look bad. Because I think the James Gunn situation did. Like,
absolutely.
I think Guardians 3 was supposed to come out pre-Endgame, and would have probably played better if it came out then, would have been more impactful kind of a thing. And like I've seen James Gunn do interviews where like he had to change that whole story, or at least elements of it, to fit where it ended up landing in the timeline than where it was supposed to have originally hit, simply because of all that stuff. Like, because there was like a 6-year time period between Guardians 2 and 3. And by the time he got back to those characters, when they were given back to him after what had happened in Infinity War and in Endgame, he's now starting at a different place than where he wanted that movie to start.
Yeah.
Like the whole relationship between Star-Lord and Gamora was going to be completely different. But by the time he gets to her, or he gets to his story, all this other stuff has happened, and they fucking killed Gamora.
Right.
So like he had a whole mess of a thing that he had to kind of try to resolve.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, wild.
I wonder, like, do you think?
And there's like a subtle like nod to that in their dialogue.
Is there?
At one point in time, like they're in an elevator or something, and he's like explaining it to either Mantis or just like another character of like how all this crap's happened, and I'm just trying to flow with it, kind of a thing. And it's like that's probably like a wink and a nod at Disney.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, y'all see what y'all are making me do.
I'm doing the thing.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's just the thing's gotten too big. You have, and this is nothing against Kevin Feige, because I think for the Infinity Saga, you had it, but I think you had it, 2009 through 11, when it's like, okay, let's sit down and map all this out. Obviously, we don't know how everything's gonna work out, but we can map it out. And then there was always this lead up to that point. And like now you've got your hands in so many different things. Is it just like that creative head just is spread too thin? Just as like, all of these things, I can just imagine like this, massive wall whiteboard of, for lack of a better word, all the timelines, and like trying to keep all that crap straight, and like all of these spinning plates, something's bound to be a stinker. The problem is when you have some movies that are better than others, it's okay, because you mentioned tent poles to kind of hold those other things up. But we don't have that now. You've got so many things spinning.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're the first company to try to attempt it.
Absolutely.
And they crushed it for, a decade.
Yep.
And so like now that I think they're just trying to, they're realizing at this point, is it worth trying to save this through thread?
Right.
Or is it time to just blow it up and start over?
See, and that's I was literally just going to ask you that question.
Which is the traditional comic book way of doing things.
Right. That was my question. Like, so what do you think the answer is?
Personally?
Yeah.
Like I can conceive a time where like in the near future, we're going to have 3 different versions of the Avengers movies all playing at the same time. And we're going to have 3 different versions of Well, yeah, or 3 different versions of the Justice League.
Sure.
And it's just, it's all random, like which one, and like, you know, it's up to you to kind of like know where this one plays and all that kind of stuff. And then at some point in time, they're all going to come together for this one big, huge mashup of stuff. I kind of feel like that's honestly like where we're going. Like, I don't know if ever this version of the MCU will be done with it. It's always going to exist, and they're always going to be able to go back and, hey, Chris Evans, like, man, dude, here's $50 million. Come back and do a cameo in this movie. It's in a different timeline, 30 years in the past, but it's actually the future, and we just need you to come back and just like say, I could do this all day. Here's $50 million to do it. And people lose their mind over it, and it'll be fucking great. And he's talking to some CGI Captain America. They'll always have that ability, so I don't think we'll ever be done with it,
right,
at any point in time. Obviously, like, I think I had this theory working as we were going through Loki right now, that it seems like the series of Loki is so focused on timelines and pruning timelines and killing timelines and trying to keep one specific timeline going, or at least a general direction for the timelines to go. And my theory was that they were trying to establish a new sacred timeline, and that the current MCU timeline would now exist as a branched timeline, and that this new sacred timeline would start way back in the past, so that now moving forward, they could create an MCU that includes their entire catalog of characters, because they didn't have the X-Men. You know, why weren't the X-Men there to help them fight Thanos? Well, because the studios didn't have access to it. That's stupid. So, like, now they can go back and they could do an entire series where they introduce each character in the correct point in the timeline.
Which is very, very comic book.
Yeah.
That's what comic books do.
I have always done.
I mean, I remember at one point, like, there's a Superman timeline where, like, Superman dies. Yeah, and Superman goes to Superman.
There's 4 new Superman that come in.
Exactly, and then like somehow
a cyborg Superman, exactly. A super young Superman,
and then like that Superman
an android
that dies actually comes back in that same series.
Has to defeat them all.
Something like it's crazy.
Yeah,
but like, is the consumer going to be up for that, or is the consumer going to do like, now Michael Keaton was my Batman? Is the consumer going to say something like, yeah, Downey Jr. was my Iron Man? Like, yeah, you can put that out there all you want, but like, it's not Robert Downey Jr.
I mean, you're always going to deal with that either way.
Sure.
But I think, you know, as long as the movie's good, people are going to go see it. I don't think there's a better example of that than Batman right now.
Right.
Like, we've got, you know, the Justice League, the Ben Affleck version of Batman. We've also got this Robert Pattinson version of Batman, alongside this Joaquin Phoenix version of the Joker, which has a different Bruce Wayne in it. And then we also have the resurgence of the Michael Keaton Batman in a Flash movie. So we've got all these different versions.
And they somehow work.
I mean, is the general public like just completely blown away and confused by that? They don't seem to be.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, Joker, I think at this point in time is the highest grossing rated R movie.
I think so.
I think it did the thing, or maybe no. Oppenheimer just overtook it.
I think Oppenheimer overtook it. Yeah,
something like that.
That's why it came back and circled back.
And then Joker came back out and overtook it.
I think that's the case.
I mean, you know, I don't think anybody has ever been that disoriented by a different person playing Spider-Man. And then even when we had all 3 of them in one movie together, people seem to get it.
Because I mean, we said this before. It's not who's playing it. It's
I'm there to see the character anyway.
Right.
But I think they could absolutely, you know, create a new timeline and start fresh and just reboot this whole thing.
Yeah.
And then you're still going to have all these characters that you can come back to and do. Like, I mean, there's this huge conversation right now that they're going to do an Amazing Spider-Man 3 with Andrew Garfield and continue from what we understand of his character from Spider-Man No Way Home, that we already know that he's gone through all this other stuff, and we're going to start there.
Right.
Like, that's bananas. Like, you know, 5 years ago, we would have not thought that was possible, but it is. And I don't think people would be that disoriented by that. I feel like we'd be able to understand, okay, no, this was his version of the character, and that's where we're at. If they wanted to come back and do a Tobey Maguire, we could do that. Yeah. I don't think people would be that
and you're going to get people to line
follow.
up. I think what it really comes down to is this article and everybody who's discussing it, maybe even ourselves included, we're looking at it from the perspective of, lightning in a bottle and these billion-dollar movies. And I think that's what Disney and everyone has to get away from, is like, you can't think about those movies anymore as billion-dollar movies. If they make $1 billion, awesome. But because if you're going to, like, you know, spread all of this out, and because you're making more content, you have to think about it as collectively we're making X amount of dollars. But that thing is now, instead of $1 billion, oh man, it happens to make 750 million. Oh, so sad. But that doesn't mean it's not a successful movie. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't add to the understanding of the characters and the narrative or whatever. So that and maybe it's the barometer of success of the thing too.
Well, I mean, I think you can objectively say that, like, especially the series particularly have, like, taking a huge step down. Like, when you look at, like, the first few Marvel series that came out, being like WandaVision, Loki,
Falcon Winter Soldier,
like, those first few series that came out seem to have, like, a different polish on them.
Yes.
They seem to be way more thought out. Like, they knew what they were trying to accomplish with those. Where, like, the more recent entries have felt very done to be done. And, like, I mean, like, for example, in Secret Invasion, like, in the first episode, they killed off Maria Hill, who's been with Marvel, like, almost since the very beginning. Like, that character has seen a lot through this whole series of movies, and they just, like, killed her off just like that, with, like, no pomp and circumstance, just like a quick shot, done.
Wow.
And it was very, like, you know, disrespectful, it felt like, to the character. And so, like, it just kind of felt like one of those things that, like, you know, we just did it just to do it, to add a splash of drama. But, like, I don't think y'all really thought through, like, oh, man, like, that's probably, we're probably not dealing with that the right way.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. So if they can get back on track of putting way more thought into these things and not just putting them out quickly just to make another buck and, like, to keep eyeballs on the streaming platform, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah.
I think people will always be there for it.
And that's my argument too, is like, is it that because we came out with Disney Plus and because, like, now we have to prove Disney Plus's worth, we have to make those things? We don't really want to make these series. And not that there's not a place for them, but, like, now we have to justify Disney Plus. So something's got to give somewhere.
Yeah.
And if I'm completely honest, as much as I liked WandaVision, Falcon Winter Soldier, and Loki, I would be okay with them saying, look, we can't focus anymore on these series. We got to do the sacred timeline, if you will. Like, we've got to do that. And we got to get back to the bread and butter of that thing. And here's a Loki season 3 because it makes sense.
My idea for it would be keep your movies as the buoys, the waypoints, if you will, of the whole storyline. And then y'all can come back and y'all can do these series. Maybe they're with, like, characters we're not using. They're more like side characters and things like that. But everything that happens within these things, they happen as, like, ancillary. Like, they add context to what's already happened, kind of a thing. And then at some point in time, maybe you jump up. Maybe that character jumps up in as a cameo in a movie.
Yeah.
To bring Nick Fury down to a series where he's already elevated to a certain point in our understanding of his character within this context of this universe, to bring it down and to be like, wow, he's really, like, going to take on this huge mission. And at no point in time he's ever like, you know what, I need to get Thor.
Right.
Or I need to bring in this new Captain America. Why would you not?
Yeah.
Like, why would you try to defeat this whole alien race on your own?
Right.
As just normal man Nick Fury. Like, it just doesn't make sense to what we understand him to be. So don't let the series alter our understanding of what you've already created. Let the series supplement it and add to it.
Or do the Andor thing. Like, we know what this Andor character is. Let's go back and fill in some gaps to give more, to, like, explain more.
It's just supplementary.
Exactly.
It's just adding to your understanding.
Exactly.
It's not anything that's trying to push narrative forward. Because, like, now, going into the Marvels, do we need to know what happened to Nick Fury in Secret Invasion? I think you have to. I think you have to understand that he went through that to understand how he's now going to deal with this other alien threat.
Right.
Why would you not? So now are you missing out if you didn't watch that? Like the one thing that I've never watched from Marvel is the Ms. Marvel series with Kamala Khan. Just never did it. Never, like, I understood that it was not geared necessarily for like my personal point of view. It was more like kid focused kind of a thing. So like I just never got around to it. I saw the one post credit scene of the very last episode where she trades places with Captain Marvel. So I understand that they're connected in that way, and obviously you can pick up on that just from the trailers. But that was like the one thing. But like I do feel like I need to go back and like binge that. It's only like 6 episodes or something. I need to go back and binge that going into it because I feel like it'll add context. But I feel like it should always be the other way around.
Yeah.
I should see a movie and then want to go back and find out more about that character.
Exactly. Not feel like I have to go watch the series to fill in the gaps.
To understand. Am I going to be missing out because I didn't watch that thing and not understand?
Perfect.
You know?
You got anything else?
No. I mean, I'm still here for it.
Yeah.
Like I'm kind of, honestly, it's like I'm in the same boat with Star Wars. Like, yeah, I think we're always going to have highs and lows, and we're just in a low right now.
Yeah.
But like we're going to come out of it and, be just like anything else. Like it'll spike again and be epic. You just got to be around for it.
Got to wait through it.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
How about you? You're done.
No, I'm not done.
Never Marvel again.
No, I'm not done. I'm just
You're having your tattoo removed.
well, no, that's permanent.
You can always take it off, man.
Not just cover it up.
It's just where it's at.
That's the problem. It was painful.
It's too tender.
It was, and it's still tender. Like I don't know if I went to the wrong place, or I got it in the wrong place.
Right.
I'm not throwing it all out.
Not on those stones.
I'm not throwing it all out. I just, I'm.
You're just not excited about it.
I'm not excited. Yeah. I need something to revitalize that excitement for me.
Sure.
And nothing yet has done it.
Yeah. I mean, but I just kind of feel like that's what it requires to let the next thing be great.
Yes.
It's just like anything. Like we gotta go through the Rise of Skywalkers to eventually get to a place where we do get like, even if it is just like a Mandalorian.
Sure.
Season 1.
Yeah.
Part of why that was so great was because Rise of Skywalker was so bad. It just was like refreshing and like, ugh.
Oh, here's what it can be.
Oh man,
good
that's
point.
Amazing.
Good point.
So you just gotta wait for it.
Yeah. Well, we want to know, what do you think about the Elijah Craig Toasted Barrel?
Yeah. You ever had a chance to try that one out? If you haven't, let us know.
Yeah.
We know where you can get some.
We also want to know, what do you think about the future of Marvel? Did you read the Variety article, and what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah. Where are we headed? Hopefully it's somewhere good.
Hopefully.
And it's got Iron Man in it. Because I loves Iron Man.
Yeah. You can get in touch with us through email. It's drepandstone@gmail.com. You can also get in touch with us through social media.
It's always one word, Drep and Stone, DREP and Stone. Come find us wherever you like to socialize your media, and we'll socialize some right back at you.
Yeah, we post...
right in your face.
We post occasionally.
Yeah. What was your phrase? More than we'd like to, but not often as we'd like. Or
less,
should.
Yeah. Less than we should, but more often than we like. Or something like that.
There it is.
Well,
We'll get better about it someday. Just like Marvel.
Sure.
Man.
Well,
what a segue.
Circle back around.
What a segue.
Yeah. Hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy.
May your glass overflow.
And your ass never show. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers. And so, like, if I had my own warehouse and I had more money than I knew what to do with, probably.
Yeah.
But, like, you happen to be lucky enough that your wife is giving you a space.
Right. A bookshelf.
A bookshelf, and you've just, like, crammed it full of shit.
Right.
And you're just hoping that one day...
Like, I was thinking about it the other day of, like, if I didn't buy another bottle, how long would it take me to get through this?
A couple months.
Yeah, I mean, like, half a year?
Yeah.
Is it a year? Would it take you a year to get through? Like, I mean, this, 50 something bottles.
See, I mean, How's that work? The 7th? Is that right?
Sure.
If it's 7 days from now, is it the 8th?
No, they come out on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Today is Wednesday.
Yeah.
So it would come out on the
8th.
I feel like it's actually very, very fall-y. Yeah, starting to get like a little peanut coming through.
Yeah, a little bit.
What was region beta paradox?
You
It's that
can't.
drying.
I don't know.
It's a little dry, a little sticky in there. It felt struggled.